homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. Now, let us continue with our study on the Bodhicharyavatara. Today we will focus on the section about the branch of confession. Within this branch, we discuss the four powers. Among the four powers, the third, the power of action as an antidote, is discussed from the perspective of diligence. Diligence itself can be divided into three parts, and we are in the second part, which is swift diligence. Swift diligence is further divided into three parts. We have already explained the first part, the unreliability of life. Now we'll learn the second part, the unreliability of enjoyments. The root verse says, "My past experiences are gone, and what do I have left of them? But out of my fixation on them, I've gone against the Guru's words." This means that within this cycle of samsara, we have all enjoyed many different kinds of enjoyments. But now, apart from the objects that appear in my mind, the memories left in my consciousness or mental impressions of those experiences, other than these memories, what do I truly have now? There is nothing left. None of those enjoyments remain. Yet, because of my attachment to these enjoyments, I have repeatedly gone against the instructions of my gurus and the Buddha. This is truly unreasonable, and I sincerely hope never to repeat such mistakes in the future. That is the meaning here. This principle is actually quite simple. For any sentient being, their journey of wandering in the cyclical existence of samsara has always been extremely long. It is not just a matter of a day or two, or even one or two kalpas. If we study Mahayana Buddhism, we'll understand that the origin of sentient beings stretches back to beginningless time. Indeed, we have been wandering since beginningless time until now. And throughout this endless journey, each of us, as sentient beings, has certainly enjoyed incomparable happiness and pleasures at some point. According to the teachings of the sutras, we have experienced incredible bliss in the heavenly realms. We have also been great kings or even universal monarchs in the human world. We have taken on all these roles. Omniscient Longchenpa also taught this. All of us here, or all sentient beings, we have been the lords and rulers of the three realms countless times. But to take ordination and wear monastic robes has only happened once, this time. So he especially taught how rare and precious it is to become a monastic. When we were lay people, we enjoyed the pleasures of Indra, Brahma, and the heavens countless times. We have experienced the happiness of the heavenly realms innumerable times. In this world, for each of us here, it is only in this life that we have the chance to get ordained. In fact, we have also been kings, ministers, and beauties of the world. We have been all kinds of beings in the world. At those times, we have tasted and enjoyed every kind of wealth and possession. There's nothing we haven't experienced or enjoyed. As long as you believe in the teachings of the compassionate Buddha, then you'll know that everyone must have had such experiences. But now, if we reflect on all these things, we'll realize that all those enjoyments and pleasures, what real substance or reliability do they have for us now? There is nothing left at all. Some things we can still recall, but many we can't even remember at all. We do not even know what kinds of experiences we have had, not to mention since beginningless time. Even in this life, we may have enjoyed many pleasures, privileges, and fame. We have possessed all these things, but now they seem no different from last night's dream. In Tibetan regions, there is a saying, those who eat meat and those who drink soup are the same when they reach the mountaintop. What does this mean? It means that when someone wakes up in the morning, if he just has a bowl of soup, that's all there is. Another person might have a hearty meal of meat, but either way, before reaching the top of the mountain, both can keep going. And once they're at the summit, it makes no difference whether they had soup or meat. So whatever they eat doesn't matter. In the end, both make it to the top. The underlying meaning applies to everyone. Some of you on your life's journey may have experienced countless hardships, pain, and disasters. Some of you, in your life experience, may have had a smooth and happy journey. But now, between the two of you, maybe the one who is a bit wealthier just looks a little better these days, while the other's complexion is not as good. But in reality, whether those experiences were happy or painful, all those circumstances have now vanished without a trace. I once met two brothers. One was the wealthy boss of a company, while the other had no money at all. So when we reflect on karma, it really gives us a lot to think about. Even though they were both children of the same parents, their karma from past lives was different. One was extremely wealthy, the other extremely poor. I heard that one of them spent a huge amount every month, while the other could barely make ends meet. His life was very difficult to sustain. But in the end, when I looked at their faces, the wealthy one did not look so well. He seemed troubled or even haggard, while the other was full of energy and looked quite good. So all those experiences we have had in the past, for the present, they are merely memories, nothing more left. And most often, even if we want to retain something, we find that we can't even recall what we experienced before. Other times, maybe just a faint memory comes to mind. Just now, as I walked in, I noticed some people holding flowers. I don't know where they got them, but when I looked at those flowers, I was reminded of my teenage years, when I used to herd yaks in the mountains. Back then, these flowers were truly my best friends in the mountains. Sometimes I would hide among the trees, and when I was in a good mood, I would smell the flowers, just as I did now, and it felt as if I was transported back to my childhood. I think this is true for everyone. Sometimes a certain object or experience from the past can trigger memories, just as it is described in the Wisdom chapter. Even if the memories are vivid, life at that time was actually quite hard for me. If at that time my life had been very happy from the perspective of how I feel today, it is truly no different from last night's dream. No matter how happy I was then, now it feels like nothing at all. Nothing remains. No matter how much suffering I had then, now it has already gone. But I hope that at that time, I did not create negative karma. If I did create negative karma, then that negative karma is always waiting for me, ready to ripen at any time. So I think for each of us here, we can reflect, what have we really gained or kept until now? All those past enjoyments, happiness and lives in the past, at that time, we were so attached to them. Omniscient Longchenpa also said in finding rest in illusion and in finding rest in the nature of mind, everything before today is no different from last night's dream. Everything we experience today is like a dream we are having right now. It is no different from dreaming right now. Everything we experience in the future is no different from tomorrow night's dream. Many teachings contain such pith instructions. I think for all of us, especially those of you who are lay practitioners, we tend to be especially attached to wealth, to our emotions, and to our family and friends. We hold on to them so tightly, as if these things are truly real and lasting. We believe them to be real. Of course, from one perspective, a dream also seems real to the one who is dreaming. But from the perspective of someone who is awake, just as it is explained in the introduction to the Middle Way, everything is empty, everything is without true existence. Therefore, we should not be so attached. In the past, we were especially attached to our enjoyments. According to the outline by Tokme Zangpo, the main object discussed here is enjoyments. In the past, we were extremely attached to these enjoyments. Precisely because of this attachment, we have repeatedly gone against the instructions of many gurus. Because we are so greedy for wealth, we are always thinking about making money and getting rich. We always put the instructions of our gurus and the teachings the Buddha gave us completely out of our mind. We did not practice in accordance with the Dharma, not practicing well. Therefore, I think each of us should see through these things. In the past, we used to be so attached to life. Not long ago, someone told me that in the past, he was extremely attached to all his possessions, holding on to them so tightly. But now, after studying Mahayana Dharma, he truly feels as if it's all a dream and is no longer so attached. I think if he has this kind of feeling, it means the Dharma has truly entered his heart. Before we studied the Dharma, we were always attached to everything. We were always clinging, always attached, never forgetting, constantly thinking about these things day and night. But now, after receiving the teachings of Mahayana Dharma, though we may still feel pain and afflictions, the situation is much better. As ordinary beings, only after attaining the bhumis can we truly cut through these habits. It is quite difficult to completely uproot these habitual tendencies, but that intense attachment we once had is probably gone. It's like the wind blowing in spring. There is still a sense of movement, but it's not as fierce as the wind in winter. Therefore, as practitioners, we should know that first, from beginningless time until now, we have not practiced in accordance with the Dharma and have already gone against the instructions of our gurus. So now we must see through this life. We should realize that all enjoyments have no real value or essence. The Buddha also explained this point very clearly in the Sutra of Instructions to the King. All the wealth we work so hard to accumulate in this life, most of it ends up being used by our children or descendants, or sometimes even by our enemies or others. Not long ago, I also mentioned the Hyundai Corporation in South Korea. Later, their family fortune, including the son and others, became the source of all kinds of disputes, and some even ended up committing suicide. Some people whom the original owner never even thought of are now enjoying the wealth. Therefore, for anyone being overly attached to wealth and enjoyments is truly of no use. This so-called wealth, right now, you only have the right to use it, not the right to truly own it. I think this is a very accurate way to put it. Also, in the Sutra of Questions of Purna, it is taught that one should not be greedy or attached to wealth. Even if you do acquire wealth, you should be ready to let it go. From now on, you should seek only the profound Dharma and uphold pure vows. This is what every practitioner should do. When we studied opening the door to the Dharma before, there were also many teachings about abandoning attachment to wealth. I hope that as you study, you will apply these teachings to seeing through worldly concerns. If we summarize all the teachings of the Kadampa masters, including Master Drumtonpa, it is like this: see through this life, see through this life, see through this life. This is extremely important for every practitioner. If every day we are extremely attached to wealth, fame, and status, clinging so tightly, then suffering is inevitable, and with suffering there can be no peace. If there is no peace, then your practice cannot possibly progress smoothly. So when you have free time, you should calm your mind and reflect. How did I spend the first half of my life? What have I done so far? Did it bring benefit to myself and to others or not? If there was no benefit, then for the rest of my life, for my future, I should make a change. I need to make a fresh start. This is absolutely essential for a practitioner. All right, let's move on to the next verse. The third point is that even friends and loved ones are unreliable. The verse says, if I must leave this life behind, along with family and friends, and go off somewhere else alone, what good all those I like or dislike? This is how it is stated in the verse. Earlier we discussed that enjoyments are impermanent and unreliable. Not only are enjoyments unreliable, but all things we possess in our current life, including our physical body, we have to ultimately abandon them all when we leave this world without exception. Even our friends and loved ones must all be left behind. In the end, we will go alone by ourselves into the bardo. At that time, we set off with no fixed destination. If that is the case, then while we are alive, why are we so attached to friends and loved ones, forming such close relationships? And why do we deliberately harbor anger and wish to avoid those we consider enemies? Why do we create such relationships of enmity? We really shouldn't form such resentments. Therefore, we should all be clear about this. Everyone in this world will die one day. Just as we discussed yesterday, this is also a key practice in the Kadampa teachings. To contemplate the certainty of death is very important. There was once a practitioner who went to seek advice from his guru. He asked his guru for a pith instruction. The guru said, I have only one pith instruction. You will die, I will die, you will die, I will die. That's all there is. Other than this, there is nothing else. My own guru taught me this, and I am teaching it to you. Later, that person truly practiced meditation on death and impermanence and attained realization. So, if you have faith, sometimes even a simple teaching like, you will die, I will die, can lead to realization. Master Yingguang, for example, always kept a large character for death in his room. He hung this character on his wall. Last year, when I was in Shanghai, an artist wrote the character death for me. I originally wanted to hang it in my room, but sometimes seeing the word death made me uncomfortable, so I took it down again. Because sometimes people would come to my home. When they see it, they might think there's something wrong with me. If it were like Master Yingguang in a meditation hall or a pure residence, it would be fine to contemplate the word death every day. I once wanted to do the same, to remind myself that one day I will also die. It really is a profound practice. But after a few days, due to various unfavorable circumstances, and it wasn't convenient, so I took it down. In reality, when death really occurs, everything we have, including our body and reputation, and even everything that has accompanied us, has to be abandoned. Some people nowadays seem to want to carry everything with them. The other day I saw someone, he had a huge bag filled with all his documents, including ID card, passport, household registration, a refuge certificate, Bodhisattva vow certificate, work permit, and so on. Every kind of document he had, all piled together in a big bag. Everything was stuffed into one big bag. I asked, "Why is your bag so heavy? What's inside?" He said, "My whole life is in here." Then he showed me each one. Indeed, while you're alive, these things can be useful in some situations. But when you die, all these documents will be thrown into the fire. The ID card you think you can't live without, at that time when you die, you can't take your ID to the Lord of the Bardo as proof. It simply won't be of any use. Although all these things are like illusions and dreams, in this illusory world, just like in a dream, if you want to take a plane in your dream without a dream ID card, you might not be able to board the dream plane. So, in a way, these things have their function in this illusory world. But most people do not know the true reality of all these things, the illusory and transitory nature of all phenomena. So when you die, even your physical body must be left behind. At that time, everything must be left behind, and you go alone. Your parents, siblings, children, all your colleagues, classmates, teachers, and everyone in this world must be left behind. At that time, you truly walk the path alone, utterly solitary, journeying on your own. So at that moment, what will truly accompany you? Just as it's described in the sutras, the results of your good and bad actions follow you like a shadow. In other words, the results of virtue and non-virtue are always with you, just like your own shadow. You can't take anything with you. Only karma follows you wherever you go. For all of us, what we should truly be attached to, we often ignore. What should we value? To cultivate good and to abandon negative. These are what truly matter. At least until we are free from samsara, our virtuous actions will benefit us life after life, while non-virtue will not only bring no benefit, but will harm us for lifetimes. This is what we should truly care about, because it's what lasts. Take our ID cards, for example. They're only valid for 100 years, for as long as we live. But our ID card of virtue and non-virtue will be used for countless years, countless kalpas. So when we look at the world, it really makes us reflect deeply. We ignore what truly matters and cling to what doesn't. Right now, we are especially attached to our friends and family, just as it is said in the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. Our desire for friends and family is as fierce as boiling water, and our anger toward enemies is as intense as blazing fire. Both are as strong as a raging fire, extremely intense. But this kind of attitude is unreasonable. Why is that? So-called friends and so-called enemies are only temporarily helpful or harmful to us, but when we leave this world, none of our friends or loved ones can help us at all. The so-called friends, how can they help then? No one can help. So it's just as we discussed yesterday. Therefore, in our practice in life, we should not be overly attached to our loved ones. Of course, we do have feelings for our loved ones, and we feel a desire for revenge toward enemies. If you don't have this, people may say you lack loyalty. People often think in this way. But in reality, if your practice is good, you'll know that there's no benefit in clinging to loved ones. Today, someone asked me for leave, saying that his mother misses him very much. He asked if he could go home to visit her. I said, maybe you should reconsider. No matter how much she misses you or you miss her, you will have to part one day. Now, the most important thing is the Dharma. If you do not abandon the Dharma, it's fine to help her a little. We should also be filial to our parents. But if you leave, I am a bit concerned. You have only been studying the Dharma for just over a year, not very long. There are so many temptations outside. Will you have the chance to return to the academy in the future? If you don't have the chance to return, you may not be able to maintain your view and stability. You can't be sure of that. So I also sincerely advised everyone, when death comes, nothing at all can be taken with you. This is truly the case. At the time of death, you could say, it's a situation that is bleak, frightening, and utterly unfamiliar. Each of us must go through this. At that time, see if you have any merit from virtuous actions to rely on. If not, then you will have to endure the results of your karma for countless lifetimes. This is truly terrifying. So today, once again, I hope everyone will reflect on this. This is a matter for each of you personally, not mine. Your liberation is your own. It may bring me a little merit, but it doesn't mean I will be liberated right away. If you fall into the lower realms, it doesn't mean I will fall as well. But for each of you, this is something you simply cannot ignore. This is your own responsibility. You have no reason to think you won't experience the results of your actions in future lives. There is no reason at all. Since there is no reason, why don't you believe in it? If you do believe, then in your daily life, can you do your best to practice virtue and avoid non-virtue? I think this point is extremely important for all of us. Therefore, Tokme Zangpo also said in his commentary that attachment to these things truly has no real meaning. In other words, from beginningless time until now, most people have been extremely attached to their loved ones. Especially nowadays, people are so attached to relationships, and it's as if they can't live without a certain person. Some people, for the sake of their loved ones, even go so far as to hurt others without a second thought. This kind of extreme attachment to both love and hatred is just too much. It is far too intense, far too strong. If we could turn this strong attachment into faith and renunciation for the Dharma, then we would all attain liberation very quickly. We would be liberated in a very short time. Therefore, for all of us practitioners, especially for those of us who are monastics, if we are still deeply attached to family and enemies, that is probably not a good thing. Some monastics are still especially attached to their families and still harbor thoughts of revenge toward enemies. If that's the case, then shaving your head has little meaning. Outwardly, you may look like a monastic, but inwardly, you have not renounced at all. Of course, for lay practitioners, it may not be possible to do as monastics do, but it's not good if you are always praising your own side and always criticizing others, even when they have done nothing wrong. Just mentioning them makes you feel helpless and frustrated. You can even tell from the way some people speak when they talk about others' faults, they are especially happy, but when it comes to their own faults, their whole expression changes. I don't think this is good. One day everyone will inevitably leave this world behind, and when that time comes, all the good and bad karma you've created will not be lost, not even a little. It will never simply disappear. The merit you've accumulated will also remain with you. Therefore, we must pay attention to this. This concludes the third point. Next, how to practice diligence is divided into two parts. How to be diligent in terms of motivation and intention, and how to be diligent in terms of conduct. First, from the perspective of motivation, how do we cultivate diligence? As we discussed yesterday, the root of virtue and non-virtue lies primarily in the mind. In finding rest in the nature of mind, omniscient Longchenpa, he also explained that the three types of non-virtue in the mind are not permissible. But if our actions are somewhat unwholesome, yet our mind is virtuous, there's still a chance to transform them. The verse here puts it this way: it would be right to only think in just this way all day and night. Non-virtue leads to suffering. How can I be freed from it? The non-virtuous actions we create in this world actually give rise to all kinds of suffering in samsara, such as all-pervasive suffering and the suffering of change, the suffering of separation from loved ones, the pain of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and so on. All these various sufferings arise from non-virtue. Even the smallest unpleasant thing in this world, for example, when the weather is extremely hot and there is a hot wind, this too is caused by non-virtue. If the weather is extremely cold and there is a cold wind, that's also due to non-virtue. In fact, anything in this world, any kind of unhappiness, is all produced by non-virtue. The Buddha also taught this in the sutras. Whoever creates virtue will experience happiness. Whoever creates non-virtue will experience suffering. I've explained this to you before. Anyone who creates virtue will definitely experience happiness. The result will definitely be good. This is the law of cause and effect. As the saying goes, you reap what you sow. That is to say, you will definitely experience the corresponding result. It will certainly be this way. Some people may wonder, why is it that creating virtue brings happiness? This is simply a law of nature. Why is it that when we plant rice, rice sprouts grow. This too is a law of nature. This is something we have already discussed in the Four Noble Truths. You should be able to understand and accept this. All unwholesome actions produce suffering. Some people have created a great deal of non-virtue since beginningless time. So when will we be liberated from the results of such karma? When will we be free from the non-virtue we have already created? The suffering we experience now is the result of past negative karma. When will we be liberated from the suffering of samsara in the three realms? We should often ask ourselves these questions, or repeatedly reflect and examine ourselves. Since beginningless time, I have created so much negative karma. When will I finally attain liberation? Reflect on this again and again. That's why the verse says, think in this way day and night. And we should truly dedicate ourselves with single-pointed focus day and night, even forgetting to eat or sleep, engaging in confession practices and cultivating bodhicitta. Without such practice, the negative karma we have accumulated since beginningless time is truly terrifying. We may not attain liberation immediately, but at least we should first develop the right view of cause and effect in our mind stream, as it is also taught in the Precious Garland. Those without right view fall into the lower realms. Those with right view are born in fortunate realms. That is to say, if you lack right view of cause and effect, then you will definitely fall into the lower realms. If you have right view in your mind stream, you have the hope of liberation. What is meant by right view? It means believing in the blessings of the three jewels, the power of the Yidam deity, past and future lives, the law of karma and its results, and so on. If you believe in these, that is called right view. If you truly have right view in your mind stream, then you will definitely not be reborn in the lower realms. So having right view of cause and effect is indeed extremely important. With right view of cause and effect, one will sincerely confess. Jetsun Milarepa in history is a classic case. In his early years, that is, when he was young, he committed many negative actions. Later, he developed right view of cause and effect and realized he would surely fall into the lower realms. In the end, he went to a cave to practice and finally attained realization. If each of us truly believes that virtue brings good results and non-virtue brings bad results, then we will definitely have the chance to attain liberation. There is hope for liberation. So for each of us, it is not just about external actions. We must have a mind of confession within. This sense of urgency and strong determination for freedom should be very powerful. Don't put it off for another year or two. Don't think like that. Day and night, once you have heard the Dharma, you should act immediately, and you should not make all kinds of excuses for yourself. Without any conditions, you should earnestly engage in hearing, contemplation, and meditation. In this way, even though life is short, there is still time to practice. For example, Geshe Chengawa never slept at all throughout his life. Day and night, he diligently contemplated the preciousness of human life. Later, his teacher, Drom Tonpa, said to him, if you never sleep at night, your four elements may become imbalanced and you may get sick. You should rest well. Don't practice all the time. Take some rest. Even his teacher advised him, but he replied, when I think of the preciousness of human life, I have no desire to sleep at all. Unlike us, who sleep so soundly, even when the alarm rings next to us, we can't wake up. Another alarm rings and still we don't wake up. Finally, when we do wake up, the sunlight is already shining on our pillow and we feel deep regret. Oh no, I've slept the day away again. Then we get up and throw the alarm clock in the trash. I don't think this is the right attitude. We often don't even have any fear of falling into the lower realms, nor do we have any sense of shame for the negative karma we have created. Without this, of course, we sleep very soundly every day. It doesn't matter. So long as I can get a meal in this world, that's enough. Some people have this attitude. Some people do have urgent faith, but others are completely indifferent. As long as I have food and clothing, that's enough. Some of us monastics, unlike when we were lay people, don't have so many emotional or family pressures. Now, as long as there's a bowl of food, they sleep soundly. But this kind of attitude is not good either. We should learn from Geshe Chengawa. But not sleeping at all from a modern medical perspective, that's not possible. We should sleep a little less. I think that's reasonable. In his life, Geshe Chengawa recited the Akshobhya mantra 900 million times. Some of us have made aspirations to recite 100 million Vajrasattva mantras. This mantra, that mantra. So many aspirations. Back when we studied the Bodhicharyavatara, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche mentioned in our class of over 700 people, we all made aspirations to recite 100 million times, but I don't know how many have actually recited, because for many of us, the awareness of death and impermanence is not strong. If this is lacking, then in actual practice, we may not be diligent. In general, when it comes to study and practice, don't be hot and cold. Sometimes diligent, sometimes not. When you're happy, you memorize a few texts. I've memorized a few texts, that's great. But when you're in a bad mood, you toss aside the middle way, throw aside Buddhist logic, throw aside the preliminaries, and just go to sleep. What kind of attitude is that? Then the next day, you wake up and feel like a different person. I must be diligent. I must memorize everything. I must practice, extremely diligent. But if you keep switching back and forth like this every day, that's not good either. We should have a more consistent and steady approach to hearing, contemplation, and meditation. Not too loose, not too tight, but with a long-term plan. Some people are very diligent at first, so much so that even we can't believe it. Is this person really going to fizzle out, or will they keep it up? Sometimes I can't tell, and over time, people change. Gradually, their initial attitude changed. Everyone's karma is different. At first, a few words can inspire immediate action, but in general, studying the Dharma is not like eating a meal or doing a simple task. It's not that simple. We should have a long-term plan. This is extremely important. Next, let's move on to the next verse, which discusses diligence in the preliminary practices. Whatever misdeeds I have done from being ignorant and deluded, whether they're naturally unwholesome or disobedient misdeeds. As mentioned earlier, we are ignorant and deluded. We have already committed many naturally negative actions, such as killing and sexual misconduct. At the same time, we have also committed many prescribed actions. I like eating after noon, or intentionally breaking precepts after having taken vows. In summary, all negative actions can be included in the categories of naturally negative actions and proscribed actions. We have already explained before what is meant by naturally negative actions. A naturally negative action is something that when any sentient being does it, it becomes negative karma. For example, killing. Intentionally killing, whether we are a lay person or a monastic, whether we have taken vows or not, even animals like yaks, if they commit this act, it's a misdeed. Such action will accumulate negative karma, and our alaya consciousness will be stained. This is called a naturally negative action, or an action negative by its very nature. What is a proscribed action? These are precepts established by the Buddha to guide beings of different capacities, and so he set forth various types of vows. These include the pratimoksha vows, bodhisattva vows, and tantric vows. If we have taken these vows and have made commitments before our guru and the sacred objects, then if we break them, it becomes negative karma. This is called a proscribed action or disobedient misdeeds. Of course, there are 4 possible situations regarding these negative actions. Some actions are both proscribed actions and naturally negative actions. For example, if a bhikshu kills a yak, it is both a naturally negative action and a prescribed action. Some actions are only naturally negative actions, not proscribed actions. For example, someone who has not taken vows kills a sentient being. This is a naturally negative action, but not a proscribed action. Some actions are only prescribed actions, not naturally negative actions. For example, the precepts for bhikshus and bhikshunis, such as touching fire or eating after noon, these are only for those who have taken vows. If you have taken vows, you will break the precept. If you have not taken vows, you will not. So there are actions that are only prescribed actions. For example, if you have taken the lay precepts or the 8 one-day precepts and you eat at the wrong time, that is a prescribed action. There are also actions that are neither prescribed nor naturally negative. For example, our ordinary eating and various daily activities are neither prescribed actions nor naturally negative actions. So there are these 4 possible situations. Of course, regarding prescribed actions and naturally negative actions, there are many detailed analyses in the Vinaya. For example, when it comes to drinking alcohol in the Shravaka schools, some masters or some Abhidharma scholars say it is a prescribed action, while some Vinaya scholars say it is a naturally negative action. There are different views on this. Gunaprabha and Shakyaprabha also consider it a proscribed action. But how do we reconcile these views? In essence, it should be considered a proscribed action. The Buddha also explained this in the relevant sutras. He specifically taught this for monastics and those who have taken vows. But indirectly, it can also become a naturally negative action. The Buddha explained it this way, and some scholars agree. This is explained in detail in the extensive commentary on the Ocean of Vinaya. I won't elaborate here. Some people may think that before the Buddha established these rules, such actions were not considered offenses. Only after the Buddha established them did they become faults. So does that mean the Buddha is the creator of negative actions, or is he the cause of negative actions, since without his rules there would be no faults? This is answered in Sakya Pandita's clear differentiation of the three sets of vows. For example, a farmer cultivates a field and plants crops. But if a hailstorm destroys the crops in summer, does that make the farmer the destroyer of the crops? Of course not. The farmer isn't responsible for the destruction. Although the farmer created the field for the benefit of self and others, after he has prepared the field, if the crops are destroyed, it is not his fault. In the same way, the Buddha's rules are not the cause of misdeeds. Why then did the Buddha establish these rules? There is a deeper meaning. It is ultimately beneficial for sentient beings. Although there may be faults, the Buddha is not the author of those faults. For example, a country establishes some laws, and before the laws are made, people are not punished for certain actions. After the laws are made, people are punished for breaking them. But does that mean the lawmaker is at fault? Of course not, because the purpose is to encourage everyone to practice virtue. The necessity of the law far outweighs any possible fault. For example, as a leader, I might need to set certain rules. So I establish some guidelines to regulate everyone's behavior. Before the rule is made, people are not at fault for certain actions. After the rule is made, if someone breaks it, they are at fault. But am I the creator of their fault? You could say, I am the one who made the rule, but do I have any fault myself? No, I do not. Because in fact, this is beneficial for their conduct. Therefore, from an overall perspective, there is no fault. There are detailed debates on these issues in the Vinaya. Those who have just heard these teachings may wonder what is really going on here. You may have such questions. But in any case, the main point is the misdeeds we need to confess. As we discussed before, among the 6 doors of purification, all negative actions can be included in both naturally negative and prescribed actions. But have we committed these negative actions? From beginningless time until now, we have certainly committed many of them. Some we can remember, some we cannot. There are many we have already committed. We should sincerely confess them before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So, how should we confess? The verse says, within the presence of the protectors from fear of suffering, I join my palms and prostrate repeatedly, confessing every one of them. This is the proper way to confess. Invite all the Buddhas of the 10 directions, including our root lineage gurus, and visualize them all in the space before us. They are the objects of our refuge and the support for our confession. In their presence, we should perform prostration with deep respect and join our hands together like a lotus bud. Then, in our heart, we generate a strong sense of shame and remorse, truly feeling regret for our actions. We should also recite the confession verses aloud. Whether in front of gurus or the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we should recite these kinds of confessional prayers. At the same time, we should also pay attention to our attitude. Recite with a mind of fear, a sense of dread. What kind of fear? If I do not confess properly, I'll be very dangerous because my life could end at any time. Once my life ends, if my negative karma has not been purified, then, as we discussed before, I will have no choice but to fall into the lower realms. So, confess with a sense of real fear. I have seen some fellow Tibetan villagers, when they meet a teacher or a great master, they sometimes cry in front of them, saying, I have committed so many negative misdeeds, how can I really purify them now? You can see in their hearts a real sense of regret. With this kind of attitude, of course, confession will be effective. But some people say, yes, I've committed a lot of negative karma. My karma is very heavy. But their attitude is lukewarm. as if it doesn't matter. With this kind of attitude, confession may not be effective. Therefore, with a truly fearful mind, we should prostrate again and again before the Buddha, especially when we are practicing the 500,000 preliminaries. We purify through prostrations, reciting the 100-syllable mantra, and mandala offerings. Confession in this way is the most supreme. So, for all of you here, if you've already completed the 5 preliminaries, that's wonderful. But if you haven't, you should definitely set aside time for them. You must complete 100,000 prostrations and 100,000 recitations of the 100-syllable mantra. I really think these are essential practices. Some people say, please give me something to practice, give me something to study, otherwise I have too much free time. They keep urging me in various ways, saying, please arrange some study or practice for me. Right now, I have nothing to practice or study, but I think there is plenty to study and practice. Don't be in such a rush. Take a moment to reflect. What kind of negative karma have you created since beginningless time, even just in this life, before you believed in Buddhism? Think about how many lives you have eaten in restaurants. Honestly, each of us has created a lot of negative karma. So now every day, we should set aside time to recite the 100-syllable mantra. Earlier, when we studied the words of my perfect teacher, we learned how great the merit of the 100-syllable mantra is. I once had a friend who worked in the police department. He would read the preliminary practices over and over and say, the merit of the 100-syllable mantra is so great, but I've created so much negative karma. Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manupalaya Vajrasattva. He would recite like this every day with great diligence. If someone came by, he'd quietly hide his mala. He would slowly tuck his prayer beads away. I think, regardless of our status, we should sincerely confess. Confession is truly important. Prostrate again and again before the Buddha and purify all negative karma in our mind stream. For example, the Buddha said in the teaching of Akshayamati, confession is actually a skillful means for accumulating merit. And in the Vinaya Pitaka, it is also said that after confession, the negative karma in our mind stream is reduced and merit increases more and more. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also said in Heart Essence, my heart's advice, if the clear mirror of our Buddha nature is covered by the dust of the 2 obscurations, both emotional and cognitive, then the reflections of the generation and completion stages cannot arise. So if our mind stream is not purified through confession, then whatever practice we do may not bring immediate results. We may not receive signs of accomplishment right away. Some people feel they never get any results in their practice and blame their guru. My teacher is terrible. I've practiced for so long. Or this practice is useless. I never get any results. Especially for beginners or those with strong anger or wrong views, they always blame this or that, never themselves. They have created so much karma since beginningless time, but never reflect on themselves. This also happens. So, we should not blame external circumstances for all our faults. We should place the blame on ourselves and purify them through the 100-syllable mantra and Vajrasattva confession. In the Compendium of Training, it is also said that when we confess, we can meditate on emptiness, we can recite mantras, we can recite sutras, and so on. These are all methods of confession. So whatever you recite, whether it is the Diamond Sutra or the Liberation by Hearing and so on, you should always recall your negative actions and confess before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. If you do this, it is truly excellent. This morning, someone told me, I really can't meditate for half an hour in the morning. Can I just recite the Vajrasattva mantra the whole time? I said, that's great, that is practice. If you really can't meditate for half an hour, at least you can focus on your negative karma and recite Vajrasattva. In the presence of Vajrasattva and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, you should sincerely confess all the negative karma you have created since beginningless time. Reciting and confessing for half an hour is also a form of practice. The so-called practice does not necessarily mean you have to close your eyes and always abide in a state of non-conceptuality. There is no such requirement. Don't let the Dharma remain mere words. If it's only words, then when the time comes, whether in this life, the next, or in the bardo, when you encounter terrifying situations, it won't help. But if you've developed even a little bit of practice in your mind, the power of that practice is extremely strong. Even a short period of practice has great power. Therefore, I sincerely hope that all of you recognize how rare this opportunity to study the Dharma is. We should confess again and again before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas all the various negative actions we have created since beginningless time. This is extremely important. Next, let's talk about the power of resolve. The last of the four powers is the power of resolve. The verse says, I supplicate you, guides, accept that my misdeeds have been mistaken. They were not good, and for that reason, I'll never do such acts again. This means that in front of all the guides of the world, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I sincerely pray and supplicate, asking you to forgive all the negative actions I have committed in the past. Why do I say this? Because the negative actions I committed before were truly not good things. They were not positive actions. So, in your presence, I should first confess and purify them. After confession, no matter what difficulties or obstacles I encounter, no matter what adverse conditions arise, I vow never to commit such negative actions again. If we can make this kind of heartfelt determination, the negative karma in our mind stream can truly be purified. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also taught these two pith instructions. When you confess first, you must understand what it means to openly confess. To openly confess means the negative actions you have committed should not be hidden. You should bring them up before the proper objects, such as your guru, a bodhisattva, or the Buddha, and reveal them, then wholeheartedly confess. When confessing, you need two things. One is a sense of regret, and the other is the resolve never to do it again. With these two, no matter what kind of negative karma you have created, it can be purified. The Buddha also said this in the Sutra of Golden Light. Negative karma accumulated over 1,000 kalpas can be purified by a single confession. Even a single confession can purify it all. This means that all the negative karma created over 1,000 kalpas can be purified by a single confession. As we mentioned before, a wise person may have committed negative actions in the past, but after doing so, will confess. In my hometown, there was once a chubby official. During the Cultural Revolution and Liberation, he committed unimaginable negative actions. People used to say, this person is truly a demon. Sometimes he destroyed stupas, sometimes he burned scriptures, sometimes he persecuted monastics, and so on. He did all kinds of terrible things as if he had gone mad at that time. Around the 1970s, when we were in middle school, at that time, an Indian guru came to visit. He went to see him, and we were all very curious. We wondered, why is that man going to see the guru? What's going on? Many of our classmates went to see what he was doing. He was crying in front of the guru, confessing all the negative actions he had committed in the past. Later, for decades, he built prayer wheels, stupas and scriptures, and he became quite well known for it. In fact, he was quite wise and capable for his change. At first, people didn't believe it at all. He had always tried so hard to destroy these things, but later, when he saw the Sangha, he would make offerings. It's said that day and night he didn't rest or sleep, constantly reciting confessions, and he may have passed away a few years ago. So I think some people are very fierce when creating negative karma, but when they confess, it's also very powerful, unlike others. Some people don't do much evil nor much good. They just drift through life every day, always a bit dull and muddled. There are people like this, neither doing much good nor much harm. Which is better? It's hard to say. In any case, for all the negative karma we have created, we should confess properly before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The Buddha also said in the Sutra of the 10 Wheels of Kshitigarbha, there are two kinds of people who are free from faults. So two kinds of people who are free from faults. Which two? One is someone who never commits negative actions. Such a person is very pure. The other is someone who, although they have committed negative actions, has a mind of confession, shame, and openness. These two types of people are called the courageous and purified ones. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also said those who have never committed negative actions are upholders of the Buddha's banner and are true followers of Buddhism. The other type even if they have committed negative actions, if they confess well afterwards, this person is actually one who destroys the banner of the Maras. So both types of people should be considered true practitioners of the Dharma. They can both be counted among those who practice the Dharma. Therefore, each of us should think in our hearts, indeed, I have committed some negative actions in the past. Now, with the presence of excellent spiritual teachers and all the right conditions, I must sincerely confess with all my heart. It's not enough to just confess verbally or superficially. It must come from the heart. For example, if I used to love drinking and spent all day creating negative karma through drinking, now I vow never to do that again. This is very important. Or if I used to smoke or gamble or all sorts of bad habits and negative actions, some people, once they decide to change, their behavior soon transforms and their merit increases accordingly. As it says in the letter to a friend, even those who, out of desire, anger, and ignorance, have committed many wrongs, if they later sincerely confess, then, like the sun emerging from the clouds, they too have the chance to attain realization. Therefore, in the process of confession, everyone must take it seriously. All right, with this, we have now finished the second chapter. In the second chapter, we mainly discuss the 7 branches, the branch of offering, the branch of refuge, and the branch of confession. In the next chapter, we will begin with the branch of rejoicing. We'll talk about rejoicing in the virtuous actions of others. This is the connection between the chapters. All right, we'll stop here for today. Now, let's dedicate the merit together.
Bandara Banma Sadar